Just having you here makes our ceremony look cheap, she spat at me. There I was, a high school dropout, invited to the wedding of a friend who had made it big. It was my first time at such a fancy, formal event, and I was already feeling out of place. My nerves were on edge, and then my friend's bride decided to hurl insults my way. Could you, the uneducated trash, cut ties with my husband? Is that okay? You're the one who said we should cut ties, she snapped. I felt a strange sense of calm as I replied, I'm washing my hands of whatever happens from here on out. She who could only judge people by their education or job titles had no idea who I really was. My name's Rick, just a humble pianist, nothing much to write home about. I love interacting with all sorts of people and zip around the world, playing my heart out on the piano. I drop by jazz bars, restaurants, and sometimes even play on the street. That's how I make a little coin, just getting by day to day. It's not something I brag about, but I grew up in a relatively affluent household. The piano, which is now my livelihood, was something I was forced into at the tender age of 3. I competed against adults and frequently won prizes, earning the title of a prodigy. Looking back, it's pretty embarrassing. But that life crumbled when I was in elementary school. My dad's business tanked, and we had to move to a tiny apartment out in the sticks. Because we lived in communal housing, playing the piano at home was out of the question due to noise and rules. But I couldn't give it up, so I practiced every day in the school's music room. One day, as I finished a piece, I heard unexpected applause. Turning towards the sound, I saw a boy standing there, moved to the point of tears. Wow, that was the Minute Waltz by Chopin, right? He asked. Yeah, that's right, I replied. Amazing. What else can you play? He asked eagerly. Well, something like this, I said, playing another piece. His eyes lit up even more. That's really awesome. How long have you been playing piano? Since I was 3. I started because I had to, but then I grew to love it. Do you play at home too? Nope. I live in an apartment, so I can't really play there. That's why I'm here every day. I see, he said, genuinely impressed. I'm Tom. Can I come listen again tomorrow? Sure thing. I play almost every day, so drop by if you're free, I said, shaking his hand firmly. From that day on, my solo performances had an audience. As time went by, Tom and I grew closer. Turns out his dad was a big shot at the Treasury, and he came from a well-off family. Do you play an instrument, Tom? I asked. Well, I mess around with the violin a bit, he said modestly. That's pretty cool. The violin seems tough. Yeah, it's hard. That's why I'm not really good at it. My mom keeps scolding me, asking why I can't play it properly, Tom said, looking down sadly. But then, his expression brightened dramatically. I was really moved by your piano playing, Rick, he said, leaning in close, his voice intense. I was touched by his words, but I never expected this much emotion from him. Hey Tom, how about next time we play together? My piano and your violin, I suggested, but his face fell a bit. Not until my violin is good enough for your piano, okay? All right then, let's practice together for the next 3 years in middle school, okay? I said. Tom hesitated before responding. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but just a few days later, I learned what he meant. What? You're taking exams for a school far away? I asked, surprised. Yeah, so it looks like we won't be able to practice together. Sorry, he said. That's okay. I mean, you've got dreams too, right? Dreams? Actually, my dream just recently. Never mind, Tom said, starting to say something but then stopping himself. I respected his feelings and didn't press further. Instead, I extended my pinky finger. Pinky swear, no matter how late it is, we've got to play together. You bet, Tom said, linking his pinky with mine, sealing our promise for a future session. I'll send you letters, I added. I didn't have a cell phone, and I couldn't afford to waste money on phone calls. So I decided to keep in touch through letters. Yeah, I'll be waiting, he said. Our paths diverged and I ended up going to the local public middle school in my hometown. I didn't join any clubs. Instead, I spent all my after-school hours playing the piano in the music room. I was determined not to fall behind Tom, who I was sure would level up in his absence. My passion for improving my performance burned strong. But that was just inside. In contrast, during the hot summer of our 8th grade year, a chilling incident occurred. Dad had collapsed at work, and after getting the call, I rushed to the hospital. He barely responded to our calls, and the doctors said he would need to stay for observation. Our anxiety only grew, and to distract myself, I threw myself even more into the piano, mastering Mussorgsky's Night on Bald Mountain. The unsettling feel of the music matched the unease in my heart, and I was oddly drawn to it. One day, as I was engrossed in my practice, I didn't even realize that a few classmates had entered the music room, listening to my solo performance. "Wow, you're really good at the piano, Rick," the girls from my class said, clapping their hands. The sound filled the music room, and I felt embarrassed by their sudden attention. I had intended to be alone and had exaggeratedly moved to the rhythm, making odd movements. I gave a curt thank you in response, feeling like I was just trying to act cool. My shame grew, and I worried if it showed on my face. "Do you always play here, Rick?" one of the girls asked. "Almost every day," I replied. I was the quiet type, not really fitting in with the class crowd. These moments of playing after school were the only times I felt some relief. "Well, that's awesome. Can I come listen again tomorrow?" she asked, reminding me of the first time I met Tom. I realized that our meeting had also been because of the piano. The black and white keys had brought someone like me into someone else's orbit. "Of course you can," I replied, happy enough to cry. But then my arch-nemesis Amelia appeared with her 3 lackeys. "What's this? The poor kid getting carried away?" Amelia jeered. She tormented me daily for being poor, and her friends joined in, creating a ruckus. "Why on earth is someone like you at this school? Having a has-been poor person around just brings down the whole vibe," she said with a barbaric laugh. The girls who had enjoyed my playing became completely subdued. I wondered who was really bringing down the mood, but I didn't have the guts to say it out loud. "Sorry," was all I could muster. The unrelenting ridicule was too much, and I left the music room, wiping tears with the sleeve of my uniform as I ran home to escape. Despite everything, I continued to play the piano every day. Amelia and her friends would always throw cold water on my efforts, but I couldn't give up the piano. With single-minded determination, no matter how much they interfered or what insults they hurled, I kept hammering at the keys. Yet my piano playing had changed more than I was aware. "Ha," I panted, out of breath from playing so intensely, sweat beginning to seep all over my body. "That was awesome today, thanks," someone said, but I couldn't take their words at face value. At some point, my reason for playing the piano had shifted from love to a way to release the pressure of a cornered heart. It had become a means of escaping the distortions of a mind compressed by a terrifying presence. I knew this wasn't healthy, but I didn't know any other way to clear the horrible feeling inside me. "Here he goes again. Can't you read the room?" Amelia's taunts grew worse as my mood fell day after day, and eventually, I stopped going to school. I wanted to play the piano, but the only place I could play was at school, which meant facing a barrage of insults. Caught in this nightmarish triangle, I was hit by an even greater despair. Honey," my father had become cold, covered with a cloth. My mother was clinging to his right arm, crying. Dad, strangely, I didn't shed any tears. Instead, I felt an intense regret. The last time my dad had heard me play was when I was very young. I never had the chance to show him how much better I'd gotten because I never participated in competitions. I just kept playing at school. I had improved a lot, was on a whole different level now. But despite all these thoughts, I never had the chance to show him. And that was incredibly frustrating. After my dad passed away, my mother and I moved in with her parents. Right after graduating from middle school, we headed to Germany. My grandfather, my mother's father, was half German and lived there. My mother, a quarter German, was named Ellie. "Hey there, welcome back, Rick." "I'm back, Grandpa." One night when I got home, I ran into my grandpa in the living room. He was watching TV while petting the dog. "Did you go to that jazz club again today?" "Yep. Since coming here, I never enrolled in any educational institution. I just went from bar to bar around the neighborhood, showcasing my piano skills. I used the tips I got to get by and managed not to rely on my grandparents." Time flew by, and the self-proclaimed pianist Rick had become a 30-something. Now I'm back from Germany, settled down in the US. I kind of missed my hometown, so I rented a room in the same apartment I used to live in and started living alone. Even though I say I've settled, I jet set around the world whenever I have a spare moment. I meet all sorts of people, share perspectives, and get updated with every encounter. I feel like I'm evolving, which is incredibly fascinating. Even with my performances, which I'm pretty confident about, traveling the world makes me realize I still have a long way to go. When I played on a street piano in Italy, a lanky old man showed up out of nowhere and casually began to play Schubert's and Die music, and my jaw just dropped. In a French tavern, while I was playing Ravel's Jeu d'eau, a girl who looked to be in her teens asked to play a duet with me. It would be a good experience for someone like me, who had always played solo. I readily agreed, but man, that girl was amazing. Instead of just following along, she actually led the way. Our first duet was a terrifyingly huge success, and the crowd went wild. That's how I continue to be tempered by the world, leveling up as a pianist. There have been plenty of challenges, but I really like the free life that could elevate me. This time, I went to Austria. After my trip, I returned to the country and somehow managed to get back to my apartment from the airport with my heavy luggage. While there's a pile up here, looking at the mailbox, there was a massive amount of mail stuffed inside, including letters and whatnot. Since I had told the landlord I was going on an international trip, I figured there wouldn't be any need for extra worry. There was a time I forgot to inform him before heading abroad. The mail had piled up so much that the neighbors thought something might have happened and reported it to the police. When I got back, I got a talking to from the landlord. Safe and sound. Well then, what kind of news do we have here? After carrying the luggage to my room, I went through the mail. Most of it was utility bills or flyers from the local supermarket. Huh, what's this? There was one envelope that was particularly lavish and flashy, a wedding invitation. Someone's getting hitched. I looked at the back of the envelope for the sender's name, Tom and Amelia. I see Tom is the one tying the knot. I got a bit excited seeing the name of an old friend I hadn't seen in a while. We had talked about sending letters, but since the summer of our 9th grade, we had stopped sending them entirely. It's been over 10 years, but it seems he hasn't forgotten about me. I pulled out the invitation from the envelope. It was folded in half, and inside, there was a section to indicate whether I would attend or not. Of course I'll be attending. I brought over a pen and circled will attend. Above it, I added delighted to. I wrote my address, name, and a congratulatory message. 11:00 p.m. I'll have to send it back and call tomorrow. Closing the folded invitation, there was a handwritten message from Tom and his bride. Tom had strong penmanship since we were kids in elementary school, and it looks like that hasn't changed. Right below, in the distinctive upward slanting script, there was a similar message. I read both, chuckled to myself, and decided to call it a night. The jet lag was hitting me a bit, but the fatigue was easily overcome. On the day of the wedding, when I arrived at the venue, it turned out to be an extremely famous upscale hotel. This was my first time attending such a posh and formal ceremony, and I was a bit nervous. "Hey there, long time no see, Rick." While I was looking for my seat, I heard a voice from behind. "Oh, Tom, congratulations on your wedding." "Thanks, I'm glad you could make it." It had been a good 15 years since we last saw each other. We didn't bother with formalities and simply celebrated our reunion with a firm handshake. Next to him stood the bride, who looked at me with a bit of surprise. "You became a bank president, huh?" "Thankfully." "That's amazing." "Thank you. How about you? Weren't you in Germany for a while?" "Yeah, I left our local middle school and headed straight there. Ever since, I've just been living freely without pursuing further studies." "I see." As we were catching up, a voice called out for Tom from a little distance away. "Oops, excuse me." Tom looked over and gave a wave with his right hand as if to say, "Catch you later." I didn't know who it was, but he took off at a jog to say hello to another acquaintance. Yet, for some reason, the bride stayed behind, still looking at me. "Rick? As in that Rick? The one who played the piano every day in the music room?" Yeah, that's me." "Ha, you're a middle school dropout." That distinctive elongated inflection at the end of her sentences, the mocking choice of words, and then the name Amelia on the invitation. I had my suspicions. The bride, Amelia, turned out to be the same Amelia who used to bully me back in middle school. Who would have thought we'd meet again after more than a decade? Just your presence makes our wedding cheap, you know that? Is that right? I'm sorry to have caused such a fuss. You feel sorry? Well, it can't be helped that you're here today. But from here on out, at this moment, Amelia's face seemed somewhat more malevolent than the one I remembered. "You low-educated trash should cut ties with my husband. Got it." Even though I had grown up, I was naturally infuriated by her words suggesting I sever ties with Tom. I couldn't remain as calm as before and retorted, Tom has been my best buddy since elementary school, but do you really have the right to cut that bond? I do because I'm his wife. I struggled to understand her reasoning, and just then, Tom came back. Sorry, Tom, I'm going to withdraw all my savings from the bank. I'll close that account too. What? Why? This is some kind of joke, right? Beside the astonished Tom, the bride was speechless. She didn't seem to comprehend what I was saying. No, your bride told me to cut ties with a middle school dropout. Amelia, what are you talking about? Because having a fallen poor man around ruins the atmosphere. It'll affect your work too, won't it? She continued to scream hysterically, not caring who was watching. Hey, why did you even invite such a poor person to the wedding? Amelia, that's too much. Apologize to Rick, Tom said, his voice firm. No, I'm not wrong, Amelia retorted, her arms crossed defiantly. I sighed, feeling the tension build. Sorry, it looks like I caused a disturbance at your wedding, I said, turning to leave. Rick, wait, please. Tom's voice was desperate as he grabbed my arm after I had walked a few steps. His eyes pleaded for a chance to talk. I wasn't angry with Tom, just frustrated by the situation. So I decided to follow his lead and return to their side. Sorry, Rick, Tom said, his head hanging low. Lift your head up, Tom. I'm the one who should apologize. I got too emotional. Amelia stood silently, her arms still crossed, refusing to look at me. Amelia, listen to me. It's about how Rick and I met. Tom began, finally catching her attention. He started recounting the story from 15 years ago, as if it had just happened yesterday. My parents were bureaucrats in the Treasury Department, really strict. It wasn't just about studying. There were so many do's and don'ts. I never had much in common with the other kids in class, so I had a hard time fitting in. Tom explained how he had been forced to play the violin from a young age, much like my own experience with the piano. I hated those days so much. When I got home, it was more studying and practice, all under strict supervision. To escape, I started wandering aimlessly around the school after classes. This was around the time both Tom and I were in the 6th grade. It was also when my dad's business failed, and we couldn't afford a piano at home anymore. Amelia, who had been ignoring us earlier, now seemed captivated by Tom's story. It was on one of those days that I passed by the music room and heard Puppy Waltz being played inside, Tom said, his voice softening as he remembered. I was so curious about who was playing. It sounded like a performance far beyond what our music teachers could do. Tom described how, when he entered the music room, he found a grade schooler playing the piano. I was blown away. Sure, it's a piece that's easy for kids, but it wasn't just skillful. It really hit me in the heart. You could tell that the performer was thoroughly enjoying playing the piano. Amelia's eyes were red with emotion as Tom continued. That was the day I met you, Rick. Your playing mended my nearly broken heart. Tom had seen my playing as one of the few comforts from the pressures of his parents. That's why he kept coming to the music room every day after that. You seemed to enjoy playing so much that I started to enjoy playing the violin. Those days I used to hate were completely transformed. He went on to explain how he became positive about taking the middle school entrance exams and aced them. Though it was a little lonely to part ways with Tom after getting into middle school, knowing that my playing had been the foundation for his success made me proud and happy. I've been complimented on my playing before, but I never thought I'd actually save someone. I thought to myself, moved by Tom's words. Hearing Tom's story, Amelia was now in tears. The high school dropout and so-called poor guy she had looked down upon was the one who had laid the foundation for her current husband. Whether she felt regret or gratitude, I couldn't tell. Amelia, you said it yourself, didn't you? During middle school, when you were going through a tough time, the sound of the piano comforted you, Tom said, his voice gentle. I looked at Amelia in surprise, my eyes wide. Don't look at me, she blurted out, blushing with embarrassment. Tom smiled softly. Maybe it's because we shared similar experiences that we got along so well. I've traveled the world and seen many coincidences, but a serendipitous meeting like this is quite rare. Who knew I played Cupid without even realizing it? Rick, Tom asked, looking a bit embarrassed. Right, he doesn't know yet, I thought. The thing is, Tom, yeah, I was surprised too when I came to the venue, but your wife, she's my middle school classmate. What? Tom was stunned, his face a mix of disbelief and shock. Faced with this astounding fact, all three of us could only laugh. After we had our fill of laughter, Amelia bowed her head to me, her hair, which must have been set for the wedding, drooping toward the ground. I'm sorry. I said some terrible things without knowing anything. Whoa, hold on, Tom exclaimed, impressed by her sudden humility. But I felt a sense of urgency. If a guest at a wedding made the bride bow, it could turn into quite the awkward rumor. Not just for that, Amelia continued. I also want to apologize for middle school. After Rick stopped coming to school, I felt regret. I wanted to apologize so badly that I went to your house after graduation, but you had already moved out by then. All right, just lift your head up now, I said, touched by her sincerity. Amelia turned back to face me, her makeup ruined by tears. She seemed to need a touch-up before anyone else noticed. Not to make excuses, but my family is pretty strict, you know. She explained how the stress had been piling up and she'd taken it out on me. Apparently, that nasty comment earlier was due to the values ingrained in her by her parents, who cared about nothing but educational pedigree. In fact, she had graduated from a prestigious university and was working at a top-tier company. So I'm really sorry, she apologized again, bowing her head to me. Let's forget the past, I said, smiling. Just make my best buddy Tom happy, will ya? After their apologies, I felt my anger dissipate so much that I almost forgot what I was mad about. Then the wedding planner came over. It was time. I apologized to Amelia in return and encouraged her to go freshen up her makeup. And Tom, about that thing. I've got it under control, he said with a grin. Yeah, I'm counting on you, I replied, giving my best friend a thumbs up before taking my seat. The wedding proceeded smoothly, and soon it was time for the entertainment. After the bride's dress change, the relatives put on a splendid dance. After that, it was my turn to carry out the plan. I was led backstage to a dimly lit area where a piano awaited. Now for the next act, we have the groom's best friend and a genius pianist, Rick's performance. After an over-the-top introduction, the spotlight was on me. The piece was Liszt's Liebestraum, a piece I'd thought of playing at someone's wedding someday. I never imagined my first performance would be at my best buddy Tom's wedding. The nervousness was different from playing in competitions, jazz bars, or on the street. It felt like the first piece was over in an instant. After a brief pause of about 10 seconds, I placed my hands on the keys again. Simultaneously, Tom stood up. It was a plan only the planner and the two of us knew about. As everyone looked on in surprise, the groom took out a violin hidden under the table. We made eye contact to sync our timing and started the second piece, Elgar's Salute d'Amour. As I moved my fingers, memories of my travels flashed through my mind. Germany, England, Italy, France, Spain, Austria. The memories were too many to count. A lanky man who appeared out of nowhere, a girl I didn't know. Even after having played duets with so many people, today I was truly moved. The duet with Tom was more wonderful than any in my memory. The sound was perfectly in sync, playing off each other's nuances. The joy in the violin melody was palpable. I felt a warmth in my eyes as I played. The audience, including the bride, were all in tears. Oh, what a perfect performance, a promise of 15 years, the duet between pianist Rick and violinist Tom, now a reality. As the last note and its resonance faded, applause filled the room. Once it died down, Tom took the mic. Rick and I have been best friends since elementary school. We both played instruments even back then, but I wasn't a match for the genius pianist Rick. I was asked to do a duet. I thought I didn't measure up, so I kept putting it off until now, Tom said, his voice tinged with regret. Back then, I wasn't enjoying the violin at all, while Rick always loved and played the piano. Perhaps I felt a gap there. I'm so glad we could finally achieve that duet here today. The venue erupted in applause once again. Tom was supposed to end his speech there, but he decided to embark on an unplanned tale. Let me introduce him properly. Rick, as I mentioned, is my best bud. This guy's a piano prodigy with a YouTube channel where he posts his performances. He's quite the big shot with over 1 million subscribers. Do yourselves a favor and check out his channel. As Tom spoke, I was grateful that my YouTube channel had garnered so much attention. I post one-off performances and clips from my international concerts. Recently, I've been dabbling in composing, with numerous commissions coming my way. Some of my works have even become worldwide hits. It's a bit tacky to talk about money, but there's about $700 million in the bank account at Tom's bank. Not that I live a life of luxury, I added. I live comfortably and plan to keep jet-setting around the world. Let's give him a big round of applause. Tom prompted, turning all eyes and applause in the hall toward me. Without getting overly excited, I gracefully bowed as a pianist would. Since around the summer before my junior year of high school, anonymous letters had started appearing in my desk and locker. They read, "Watch out. The tough guys are targeting you. Be on guard against shakedowns or worse." The handwriting was distinctive and familiar. Around that time, Amelia had started showing up in the music room. Although she bullied me daily, she never interrupted my playing. She would always wait until I finished a piece, share the afterglow with the audience, and then leave. It seemed like she enjoyed the performance but was quick to send me on my way. I began to wonder if she might have been behind the letters, given that the handwriting was identical to the wedding invitations. I tried to contact Amelia a few times to confirm, but she always played coy. I decided not to pry too much, so I kept it to myself and silently appreciated her gestures. As the wedding ended and people started leaving, I was approached by a group of kids. "That piano performance was awesome. Hey, thanks. Play that song." Upon further inquiry, it turned out to be the theme song from a popular demon-slaying movie. I played just the chorus, and they were thrilled. This kicked off a flurry of requests for tunes from the movie, various pop songs, and more. It turned into quite the riot. Eventually, the buzz died down, and the newlyweds approached me. "Rick, thanks so much for today," Tom said. "Same to you." "Thanks, but hey, about that thing with the bank account, was it true?" Amelia asked, looking at me apologetically. "Of course not," I replied with a smile. "I was just being emotional. Sorry for spouting nonsense." "That's a relief," Tom said with a relieved smile. "But about the money though, yeah, I'm planning to use that $700 million to create a music studio. Not a formal school, but a place to foster opportunities for engagement with music. I want to provide support so that nobody has to give up on music because of financial constraints." When I opened up about my dream, 2 friends were on board. It seems they related to my vision of music and were keen to help with setting up and running the place. Several days after the ceremony, I received a call from Tom. "I appreciate what you did the other day. I found out today that Amelia is expecting. That might have been why she was so off-kilter then. Hope you can cut her some slack." As I was prepping for my next journey, I shot back a message. "Congrats, buddy. To think my best pal's going to be a dad. Don't fret about the other day. All is well. On another note, you've got to check out the video dropping today." That evening, my channel featured a new video titled "For My Friends," a medley of dreams of love and lives greeting, the same pieces I played at the wedding. It was meant to keep the memory of that moment alive. I considered posting a duet with Tom, but decided to keep that mythical performance to myself. A person's true nature can't be sized up by diplomas or just by what they say. I might have just a middle school education, but I see myself as someone who's made it in their own right. The same goes for Amelia. Judging by how she was with me back in middle school, you'd think she was quite a piece of work. But sending those anonymous letters and trying to get me home safe before trouble hit shows she has a big heart, albeit in her awkward way. I've come to appreciate what matters in life by engaging with people across the globe. Some places might not boast the finest education systems, but that doesn't mean the people from there are all bad eggs. The essence lies deeper. What you believe and think is the key. I intend to express my true self through my piano playing, and I hope that one day it might be someone's salvation.